The Rosen Report, sports like never before. Brought to you by Gooch Live and Paramount Sports Management. Here's Rosie.
Good Tuesday afternoon. Hope everybody had an incredible holiday. Yesterday was Thanksgiving. I give thanks every time I'm able to have this guest on. He is not only an incredible knowledge, a wealth of knowledge when it comes to any sport, football, baseball, hockey, softball, croquet, probably a little of everything. But I wore my courage shirt today because this guy taught me courage. We coached together in the Maccabee games in Israel twice. 2013, we didn't really, we had a good team, but silver, the U.S. beat us in the gold medal game. But in 2017, man, did we have a team, and we brought the gold home. He is one of my all-time favorites, not just guests, but people. I consider him an incredible friend, like a brother. He is the assistant professor of RTA School of Media at Ryerson. Let's bring him up. Dan Berlin.
Hey, Rosie. Thanks for having me. That's an awfully nice introduction. Thank you, sir.
Well, listen, you know what? You have been so busy. I wanted to have you on a bunch of times. Hopefully, we're going to make it like a monthly thing during the hockey and football season. Baseball is we both love baseball. So why don't we dive right into to baseball right now? Over my shoulder, it is the Chicago White Sox and the Houston Astros, two of the iconic managers in all of baseball, with Tony La Russa and Dusty Baker. The Houston Astros just took a lead 3-1. They win today. They move on to play the Boston Red Sox. Thoughts on that?
Amazing, really. I mean, Boston, you know, in some way, shape, and form, you even wonder how the heck they even got this far. You know, I mean, the bullpen was barely hanging on. But I was just having this conversation, Rosie, just yesterday, and I think they've got three things. I think number one, if you're going to go far in the playoffs, you got to have the clutch gene. And they've got that clutch gene. Like somebody different stepping up every night to help them win. And even when you look back to when they won the World Series, a guy like Steve Pearce came out of nowhere to win the World Series MVP. Yep. Like, where do these guys come from? They put on that Red Sox uniform. So it's something's going on there. So they're feeling it. And then really, you know, Alex Cora is just an unbelievable manager. Yep. And he's getting the most out of the situation. So, you know, when you look at Tampa, who just lost out, I mean, obviously the turning point being that horrendous, you know, rule of the game that kept that to a ground rule double and prevented the go-ahead run from scoring in the 13th.
Right.
That happens. You got to be lucky sometimes to win your baseball games too.
Yeah.
But Cash didn't make the right moves, you know, and his bullpen was really on fumes, and he just didn't seem to have enough depth in starting pitching. I think that was the difference. You know, Rodriguez came out through a huge game for him yesterday. Even though they blew the 5-0 lead, it's, you know, they just had enough to get through. That being said, I'm not necessarily counting out the White Sox in real time yet.
Yep.
But I think the Red Sox are going to be hard-pressed to beat the Astros or the White Sox if it goes that far.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. You know, I go back to the Red Sox a long way before the Jays had a team, and up until 2004, you know, they hadn't won since what it was 1918, or it was a long time. And then they win in 4 because of the Big Pappy and the comeback, you know, 4 straight against the Yankees, and then they win in 07, and then they win 013, or not 013, but 13, and then 18. It's like 4 World Series. I like their team. I just don't think they're good enough to I think as I'm watching, the Astros just went up 5-1. They're dominating. It's going to be Houston, Boston. I like Houston. Let's go to the National League, and then we'll talk for a little bit about the Blue Jays, because, you know, I honestly really think that, well, I'll get to it after. Let's talk the National League. So the National League, what a game last night. Like, we're purists in baseball. A lot of guys on 1-0. What a game. I thought that San Fran Dodger game last night was incredible. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I actually, I definitely stayed up to watch it. And, you know, Scherzer was somebody who I had on my fantasy team all year. And unfortunately, I mean, listen, he had gone in, he hadn't lost a single start for the Dodgers. 12 games he started. They had won all the games, and he's just such a competitor. And yet, something is just happening with the San Francisco team, because if you look at the average age of their starting nine, like it's like 2 years, they're over the age of 30 is their average age. They're 2 years older than any other team in baseball this year. So, we always talk about how experience really pays off at this time of year, but you just go through that lineup. And, that play, that game, and that's baseball. It comes down to that one moment, that one play, and it was in the seventh inning. And first and second, 2 out, and you got Mookie Betts at the plate, and he rips one that looks for sure like it's going over the head of Brandon Crawford, and then he just makes a play. And you look at a short series, a 7-game series is a short series, but a 5-game series will genuinely and generally hinge on one or two key moments, key plays. We talked a little bit about what happened in the Red Sox-Tampa series with that rule, a fiasco in the 13th inning. That Brandon Crawford play, saved the game. And now the Giants are just one win away from really, slaying the beast. And really anything you think about, Rosie, that the Giants and Dodgers are doing, considering this is the first time these two historic franchises have ever faced each other in a full-fledged baseball series. I mean, if this isn't must-watch TV from a baseball fandom standpoint, I don't know what is.
Well, the crazy thing, too, is, you look at it, the San Francisco Giants win the division with 107 wins. The Dodgers have 106, and they have to play a wild card game against St. Louis, which could have been a lot harder. The Dodgers did well. I like, to me, this is the year it's going to be San Fran and Houston. Going to be a real good World Series. I think San Fran does it again, and they add their fourth. They did those three, every other year for a while. I like baseball when it's played at the best, when everything is on the line and the little things. We look at those, but the right field. What a couple of plays when. Oh my God, who was it? Kiermaier throws the guy out at third base from deep center almost into right field. I love that stuff, but we love our baseball. Let's talk for a second before we get into hockey on the Blue Jays. Mm-hmm. Blue Jays were 1 game away. If the people could say, well, they had to rely on the Yankees or the Red Sox to lose a game. They fell apart a little here and there, but I honestly think if a Blue Jay fan is upset at that Blue Jay team and where they ended and how close they were, in my opinion, Dan, and I want yours, if they got into that wild card game, I think the way they were playing, they go a long way.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a Blue Jay fan, you should be upset only because of the missed opportunity that was this year. Obviously, the stretch drive was incredibly exciting. And it really came down to that third game of that Yankees series when Robbie Ray kind of got lit up for the first time really all season. And they lost the game that had they won, they would have been in the playoffs. So, the Jays, without question, were one of the teams most feared. I think it came out after the fact that the Yankees then had the opportunity to pick who they would want to play if there was a 14 tie, and they chose Boston over Toronto just as a sense of just how feared they would have been to play such a stacked Toronto team.
Right.
The bigger question now is, the chances are that Robbie Ray won't be back. Chances are that Marcus Semien won't be re-signed. So I just look at this year as a missed opportunity because, as you say, Rosie, once you get in the dance, anything can happen, but they just missed. And it always points to those games earlier in the season. There were a lot of games that they left on the table. And unfortunately, those were the games Boston was winning, kind of winning the close ones. We lost a few too many.
I'm glad you said that because 14 games, they were either tied or had the lead in the 7th inning and ended up losing the game. You cannot have that. Their middle relief to their closing, although at the end they had 3 or 4 guys that were doing their job. Let me ask you if you're allowed to vote. I know you don't have a vote on the Major League Baseball, but if you had a vote, who gets the MVP? As good as Guerrero played, I still give the MVP to Shoney.
Yeah, I think Ohtani gets it, for sure. And I mean, I've had this debate. There are certainly staunch Blue Jay fans who don't see it the other way. And maybe if it's any other year, Vladdy gets it. And I'll give you one more prediction. I actually think Vladdy Guerrero is going to win a Triple Crown before it's all said and done.
I agree with you.
It's like watching Miguel Cabrera happen all over again, and
Yep.
he's that good. What we just saw from Shohei Ohtani hasn't been done in 100 years, and let alone, I would argue, even he outpaced and outdueled Babe Ruth in terms of what he accomplished this year. It's one of those years where you just step back in awe of what just took place in a truly great season. And yeah, maybe if Vladdy had gotten the Jays into the playoffs, maybe that could have tipped it. But the fact that Jays fell short, to me, it's like a no-brainer. Shohei is your MVP.
I just hope that Shohei wins it this year, and then it doesn't become this, well, it's still a phenomenon next year that he does both, and then next year he does both.
Right. Like, you're right. Like, I guess he wins it the next 5 years because he's always going to be able to do something no one else can do.
Right.
I hear what you're saying, and I think the biggest comparable to that would probably be his teammate, Mike Trout.
Yes.
Because Trout has been the best player in baseball for the last 7-8 years.
Yeah.
But how many MVPs has he won? And I think to that point, you almost go, okay, listen, I'm gonna give justice where it's due. I'm gonna acknowledge how incredible this season was.
Yep.
But yeah, moving forward, I actually don't think Ohtani will win it unless he wins 20 games and hits 50 home runs to a point where he deserves it.
Or the Angels finally make the playoffs and do something. Because I think that has to. Last thing on baseball, Cy Young. Ray gets it. I give it to Ray. Does he sneak it out of Cole's hands?
I mean, I think there's actually a chance. I remember the year, I think it was 96, Pat Henkin won it, and he went up against Andy Pettitte, and Pettitte was with the Yankees, and they were the World Series. They won the World Series that year. Robbie Ray was the best starting pitcher in baseball. And the unfortunate part, and I'm going to say this, and I think it will actually cost Robbie Ray the Cy Young, is that game against the Yankees on that Wednesday night when he gave up, what was it, 4 or 5 home runs in that game. Yeah. He just completely fell apart in a game the Jays had to win. I think that'll end up being sort of the lasting image and memory for the voters. I think that game alone will cost him. I could see Garrett Cole winning it.
The only reason I disagree, and I agree with that game, that was terrible, but then Cole did the same thing. Either the next day or the day before, he had a stinker, although Ray did give up 4 home runs. But do you think...
You're right, man. Garrett Cole wasn't exactly lights out down the stretch either, and he wasn't. So, if you're really looking at the numbers, they certainly favor Robbie Ray.
Is there any scenario, last thing on baseball, is there any scenario that Ray and Simeon or Simeon come back to Toronto?
I mean, the only one I could see with Ray is if his relationship with Pete Walker, because of course the Jays came back and said that the entire coaching staff's back. So if he looks at Pete Walker as sort of his little whisperer to the point where, he wants to continue to work with Pete Walker, it's the only way I see Robbie Ray coming back. Yeah. He literally has 6 years, 150 staring at him. I think he's going to get around. I think he's going to get 4 years, 110. Like, he's going to get a monster deal. I think the Jays, unfortunately, are saddled not only with the Ryu contract, which isn't a great contract now, but they have to pay. They have to pay their players. They're going to have to play Vladdy and Bo and Teoscar, and then maybe Simeon. Now, so I think Ray walks. I think he's getting just a monster deal somewhere, and I unfortunately don't think he's back. And even he tweeted and said, "Hey, thanks, Jays fans. What a great year!" Like that. To me was like, it's been a slice. And listen, full marks. The other thing with Simeon is I think Simeon
wants to play.
I think it depends. Does he want to play shortstop?
He said he wants to play short.
Yeah. And if he does, he's not going to be. He's not coming back. So I think they lose both those. The one thing I will say about Shapiro and Atkins, what they did a beautiful job of. Listen, they went out and got Simeon. They went out and resurrected Robbie Ray off the scrap heap and turned him into a Cy Young caliber pitcher. Yep. So I think that's where the Jays thrive. Yeah. Is use your smarts to be able to then take advantage of Pete Walker You could get value plays. Like Steven Matz was an incredibly effective pitcher for the Jays. They didn't have to break the bank on him,
Right.
nor did they Robbie Ray. I think those are the guys they need to target.
I think you are 100% right there, because Arizona, they look back and go, "What, this Robbie Ray? We had Robbie Ray for a long time. What, Robbie was Nay, not Robbie Ray." But I love Pete Walker. I think he's the best pitching coach in the majors. I think he does a lot of things. I'm not thrilled. We're not even going to get into this because it's too much baseball right now. We love baseball, but we got a hockey audience. Charlie Montoya, to me, I love you. Charlie, you're a great guy. I'd love to go out for dinner with you. But to me, you're not a major league manager, in the sense that they need somebody just with a little more. I don't know. That's my opinion. We'll leave that for another show. Hey, Dano, tonight, the NHL, what a time. Hockey is like starting tonight. Baseball's in full swing. You can get 3-4 games in a night. Football is going crazy. Basketball's going to start. We got everything going. But tonight, the NHL starts up, and it starts up in a full season, 82 games. Everybody's back home. Crowds are going to be there. You got the Pittsburgh Penguins, who have not really done a lot recently. They're going up against a 2-time, trying to be 3-time champion Tampa Bay Lightning. Talk to us about that matchup.
Well, the banner goes up in Tampa, 2-time defending champ. Now they're going to have Kucherov back for healthy to start the season. I'll say this. It begins and ends with Vasilevsky in goal. This guy is just the best goalie in hockey year in and year out. And as long as he's there in Tampa, I think they've got it. And now McElhaney retired, so I think Brian Elliott's now coming in as the new backup in Tampa. So they are set from the net out. I look for Sergachev, Mikhail Sergachev. I think he's just going to take his game to another level. He's talked about he wants to get more offensively involved. I mean, Braden Point is arguably the most underrated player in hockey, like a superstar who's in the shadows of Stamkos and Kucherov, so maybe doesn't get the just desserts. But that's a great team, top to bottom. They re-upped John Cooper for 3 more years. You talk about great coaches. That guy's a master motivator. So question is, are we just watching a potential dynasty unfold? Because we harken back to teams like the Oilers and the Islanders of the 80s when teams actually won 4 cups in a row.
Yeah.
To me, it is not out of the realm of possibility that Tampa could do that. I think they're that good. Now, we look at Pittsburgh as that team who we remember as a dynasty, who is no longer a dynasty. They're still a very good team, and as long as Sidney Crosby's the captain of that team, they're going to have an identity. But I look at it like, we'll see. I mean, again, Malkin is, not a factor anymore. Malkin's out of the picture, and then you've got Crosby, great point by Jordan, just like 3 straight first-round exits for Pittsburgh. So listen, on the first night, you wonder if there's a little bit of a hangover. The banner goes up. Could Pittsburgh win tonight? Yeah, sure they could. Jari's a decent goaltender, but I'm all in on Tampa until someone else can prove me otherwise.
I do not disagree with you on anything you said. I think Pittsburgh's serious issue, and Jordan and I have talked about this at nauseum, is their goaltending. They are not strong in goal. They have not impressed me with their goaltending. So we'll see what happens. Let's get to the other one. And this one interests me because you have the Las Vegas Knights, who came in the league as a expansion team. Nobody had a clue. Before they even started, it was a tragedy on the Strip with the killing. The team just molded together, and they have been a phenomenal force every year. Very close to winning Stanley Cups almost every year. They've done something. Now the Seattle Kraken are the new team. And it's not like years ago when Ottawa came in the league and you had to stink for 10 years before you did anything. Some teams still stink and never did anything when they came in. But do you think that the Kraken can the pressure get to them, or can they do what Vegas did? I don't think they can, but I want your thoughts.
I mean, I think the Kraken look at this season like they're playing with house money. I mean, the expectations, maybe are they going to be able to follow in Vegas's footsteps and make a run to the Cup final? I mean, I don't really think realistically anyone's targeting Seattle as that team. But I actually think Seattle is going to be a little bit better than maybe, others might give them credit for, what you would look at as a normal expansion team. I mean, first off, to me, naming Mark Giordano as their captain was an A-plus move. And I'm not saying Giordano's still like in his absolute prime, but he is still a great leader. And I think he was the right choice for that particular team. The other thing that they did, and again, I believe hockey will always come down to goaltending, is they have amazing goaltending. I mean, they picked up Philip Grubauer. He's been added to the team. He is a legit number one. And then they picked up Rosie, your boy, Chris Driedger from Florida. And he's the backup. Like, what an ace in the hole. They've got the 1-1A. You expect Grubauer is probably going to play 50 of the 80 games. And you expect, Driedger to be a big, big part of that. But what a great solidify it from the net out. And that's going to give you a chance to win on almost every night. That Seattle's going to be jacked. That town is excited to have hockey there. Yeah. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Seattle becomes a playoff team in their first year. I kind of think they will be.
Yeah. I kind of went over my stuff. I'm not ready to. I think on Friday, Gooch and myself and Jordan are going to give our predictions. I'm still bouncing around Seattle being in 5th or making that 4th last playoff spot in that division. The divisions are crazy. There's 4 divisions of 8. Only 4 in each division make it. And I think the Kraken, as far as Driedger's going, this is a great opportunity to back up a goaltender who can really teach him. I don't know how much he learned in Florida with Bobrovsky. I've heard things about Bobrovsky, but we'll leave it at that. I really think Florida is got a number one star, forget Bobrovsky, in Spencer Knight, the U.S. Superstar young kid. Let's go. We don't have a ton of time. I want to key on. We can go to the next time you're on, hopefully in 3 weeks or so. We'll see where the NHL is. But let's just go over the Atlantic Division because, that's the division that the Leafs are in, and we're in the Leaf area. I think the Leafs are going to be hard-pressed to make the playoffs. But what I want to talk to you about, we talked a little bit about the Lightning. I want to talk to you about the Ottawa Senators, who I think, in my opinion, in the Atlantic Division, they are the dark horse. They are the surprise team. I think they're going a long way. Saying that, they're probably going to end up in last. But let's just talk briefly about the Ottawa Senators, Dano. Any thoughts on them?
Well, listen, it comes down to they've got some incredible young talent there in Stützle and Batherson, and of course Brady Tkachuk is an elite forward, but Brady Tkachuk isn't under contract yet. And if this just comes down to owner Eugene Melnyk not willing to pony up and give a bridge contract to a guy who richly deserves it to the point where he's going to bite his nose to spite his face, it's just another reason for me to totally feel for Senators fans. And it kind of breaks your heart because they have the potential and they've had some incredible young pieces come through, and yet they're operating like they're a AAA ball club or a hockey club, pardon me. And it's just kind of sad. And listen, Matt Murray, they got Matt Murray in goal, I believe. Yep. He's a good goalie, but I don't know, man. It's like, I don't think he's quite good enough. I mean, if they have Tkachuk in there, and hopefully this doesn't drag out unnecessarily longer than it needs to, they're going to obviously be gritty. They're gonna scratch and claw. They're not going to be an easy team to play on a night in, night out basis. I don't see this being the year Ottawa's there. I think Stützle is going to be a future star, but you just kind of have to give him the 3 or 4 years to mature to get to that level. It's funny, you sort of threw out there a little ping that the Leafs might not make the playoffs this year. I mean, the Leafs are going to make the playoffs this year for sure.
Okay.
I think it just comes down to, are they going to win a round in the playoffs, and really how much sandpaper they're going to be able to add, to really sort of erase those brutal memories of the last playoff year for one, blowing that lead to Montreal.
I think a big thing with the Leafs is going to be, can Campbell and Mrazek stay healthy? I love Mrazek if he stays healthy. these two guys get hurt a lot. So
But that's any team.
And
Like
you're right. You're right.
like I think Campbell really earned the trust of his teammates last year. I think Campbell's going to be great. Now, when you get to the playoffs, he's still unproven in the postseason, and there's just no telling how good he'll be. I will say this, though. They got out from the shadow of Frederik Andersen. I think that was the best move they could have made.
Absolutely.
Like, at the end of the day, it was a great era. Freddie Andersen was a great goalie in the regular season who could not get it done in the playoffs. He's with Carolina now. We'll see how he does there, but he wasn't the right goalie for the job in Toronto. And now they're moving on, and they're going to give Campbell a shot. And I think they've got a better shot with Campbell after last year than they would have with Andersen.
I don't disagree with you on that one. Hey, I want to throw in two real quick things before we call it a show. Because of your background with the school and with what you do in teaching and dealing with young kids, how do you deal with I'm in your class, Dan, and I'm just, Mr. Berlin, I just don't understand the finances in sport. It drives me crazy. Perfect example you talked about, Tkachuk in Ottawa. This kid has got a great future, yet he's holding the Senators hostage. How do you talk to a group of young men and women getting into this field about that?
I will honestly say, like, there's two sides to every story. The thought that it's Tkachuk holding the team ransom. He wants to get paid, and he wants to get fair market value for what he believes he's worth. I can see both sides of that. So honestly, what I'm trying to do is present facts and allow for a conversation, a discussion to take place that can see both sides, and try to do it in a way that's non-judgmental. So the easy thing would be to say, "Oh, Melnyk, you're cheap," and yes, Ottawa has $20 million in cap space, and there's room to be paid, but maybe Melnyk is dealing with a bottom line where he's so far in the red that he just can't justify paying a player like Tkachuk what he's worth. And Tkachuk's looking at it like, I know who I am and I know what I'm worth. Right. And how do you find a way to get together there? So I think it always comes down to, no matter what the topic we're talking about is let's educate ourselves on the fact, present the argument in a balanced way. And then at least that way we can dissect it in a meaningful way where we're not judging, but we're actually learning.
Yeah. You know what? 30 minutes goes by way too fast. Listen, Dan Berlin, one of my all-time favorites. Dan, the man, I love you. Assistant professor, RTA School of Media. We have to end on one note. You are the football expert. Whenever I need anything in football, I dial up Danny Berlin. He's a Cincinnati Bengals nut. We know that. All you got to do is see his car. You still got the plates and all the stickers and that, right? All right.
Oh, absolutely.
Talk to us about this. Social media is insane. It goes back and it does, and all of a sudden we hear John Gruden, who is heart and soul. He's like, he won a Super Bowl with Tampa. He's been away. He comes back with the Las Vegas Raiders. He's really turning in my opinion, he's turning the program. They look real good. Now he's done. Talk to us about that and what you as a professor and as a fan.
Well, listen, at the university, we really, EDI initiatives, equity, diversity, and inclusion is at the heart and the soul of everything that we're doing, that everybody is treated equally and fairly. Here we are at a time where, a coach like John Gruden, with the reputation that he's had as a Super Bowl winning coach, as the leader of the Raiders and taking them into this new stadium, here we have a situation where he's been exposed for using language and derogatory terms that there's just no excuse for in today's society. So I think it speaks to how far we've come as a society. I believe that because here you have Carl Nassib, the outwardly, gay player on the Raiders, who is playing on the Raiders, And John Gruden, the coach, is no longer on the Raiders. And I think that speaks volumes. And I just, I think you get to a point where, unfortunately, it looks like the game has passed John Gruden by. And I applaud the NFL and the Raiders for taking the stance they did, because that's not an easy stance to take, because he was at the, had his fingerprints on everything going on in that organization. Now they have to start over, but they put their values and their morals first, and I applaud them for it.
Yeah, me too. Now, that 100%, he resigned, but he was going to be fired if he didn't resign, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for a fact, but usually the resignation is a sign of giving that person a chance to leave on their terms, as opposed to, exactly your point, instead of being fired. But it certainly appears mutually, or at least by the team in the league, that there was no way for him to continue forward in that role.
Beautiful. Dan, any last words for our audience before you start getting ready for whatever you're getting ready for?
Well, like you said, I mean, October is just one of those times of year where it's great to be a sports fan. I mean, for our hockey fans out there, puck drop, fantasy hockey's underway. Enjoy the season to whichever team you follow. Everyone starts the year at 0-0, so your Stanley Cup aspirations are still in full effect. Rosie, it's always a pleasure talking sports. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Dan Berlin, we'll have him on again. He'll be a regular this year as much as he possibly can. He's a busy guy, but we love having him on the Rosen Report. Thanks, Dan.
Anytime. Thanks, Rosie.
Take care. You talk about a guy who knows sports. He knows it all. Like I think I know hockey and I know baseball, but there isn't a sport that he doesn't know. In football, I'm telling you, you want to know anything about football, Google Dan Berlin, and he's going to tell you everything you need to know. I love his comments about the NHL, about baseball right now. If you follow the baseball, the Houston Astros are beating the Chicago White Sox 5-1. Bottom of the fifth. Looks like it's going to be Houston and the Red Sox in the finals of the American League. I love baseball. I love hockey. I'm so excited tonight. The NHL starts. Can't wait till Friday. The Gooch and Jordan and myself are going to talk about, I think we're going to talk about our predictions. Should be great. Anyways, until then, there will not be a Rosen Report on Thursday, guys. I think Gooch, if I'm correct, Gooch has his bottom line show tomorrow, Lunch with Gooch at the bottom line. There will not be a show. So Robert Wine, no show, no Rosen Report on Thursday, but we're going to be doing a show on Friday, getting ready for the season and all our predictions, and then a great roundtable. And the Journey will be back on Sunday night. Hey, have fun. Sports is incredible, but remember too, from a guy like John Gruden, who just is done, his career is over, really think before you type something or say something. Think about the people around you. Think about the communities that you maybe don't know about, how much you can hurt somebody by saying something that just is absolutely not right, offside. Let's all learn. Let's all learn from this. Learn from each other. Take care of each other. Have a great Tuesday, and God bless.
You've been listening to the Rosen Report, sports like never before, with your host, Rosie. Brought to you by Gooch Live and Paramount Sports Management.